Okay, this is Josh T. Franco interviewing Caitlin Murray at her home in Marfa, Texas on July 1st, 2020 for the Smithsonian Institute Archives of American Art Pandemic Project. All right, that's the scripted part. We're done. Hi, Caitlin. Thank you so much. We know each other a few ways. There's multiple reasons I thought you'd be great for this project to document this crazy year for the future in these dual pandemics. But we'll start first with most institutionally, I'm interested in that. So you're Director of Archives and Programs at Judd Foundation, which is split between New York and Marfa, and you're in Marfa. So just from that position, I'd love to hear a little bit about what's happened because of these since March for Judd Foundation.
Right. So it's been an interesting kind of reevaluation time period for us. The big retrospective of Judd's work was open for about 12 days between the end of February and the beginning of March, and
at MoMA.
At MoMA, and we pretty around that time, not long after the reopening, we knew that we needed to shut down our public programs in Marfa and New York. So we voluntarily shut down our public guided visit program, which is the primary program that we host through the foundation, which provides direct access to Judd's living and working spaces in Marfa, New York. Of course, at that time, the pandemic was really hitting New York very hard, and that has subsequently now shifted to the effect that the pandemic's having on Texas, our neighboring county to Presidio County, where we're located. Brewster is now, I think, well over 130 cases, which is quite a lot for such a remote area with a small population. So I think the foundation's response has been, really rapid and really focused on the health and human safety of our staff and of the communities that we participate in, both in Marfa and New York. That's been our primary concern. We are still closed to the public and working remotely, even though in Texas, we now could be open to the public, but we've not joined in those reopening initiatives and have no concrete plans for when we will reopen. All of that is really being determined by caseload and metrics, and really looking at experts and thinking through what our local health officials say is safe for our staff and our neighbors.
Yeah, as a one-time artist guide at Spring Street, I've been thinking about that a lot. But also all the historic artist homes I visited, I was reflecting on how much there was not a second thought about being in a small group of 8 to 10 tourists, right, going through a small private personal space. I've done that certainly at Judd, but at Thomas Hart Benton's home, S.P. Dinsmore's place in Kansas, all the places that Spaces Archive supports. That's a huge ecology of places, and I'm just wondering if y'all are even at the stage of planning for what those visits might look like, or if they're even possible.
Right. It's a great question. I mean, direct experience has been historically a cornerstone of what we do. We are looking at different models, how we can provide a safe viewing experience that is not so tied to a guided visit model, but maybe there are opportunities to host visitors through more of what we call an open house style. That's kind of language that Judd had kind of generated for this time period when people are able to visit the Chinati Foundation and Judd's private living and working spaces without having a guide, but being able to still bring a level of knowledge and information while practicing social distancing and keeping the group size is very small. So we are thinking about that, and that's key on our minds. But really, I think we've been taking this time to think about what we do and think about what we want to do moving forward in terms of online programs. We pretty quickly transitioned to both hosting online programs, participating in online programs, providing the kind of research and resource support for online programs. And we found them to be really successful, that we've been able to expand our audiences and kind of deepen our commitment to engaging in partner programs. And that's been really productive for us. Also, just in that we do have our New York office and our Marfa office, being able to do programs that can engage both of those communities as well as a kind of broader Judd audience, I think has been a really nice opportunity. And I think we will be taking those things that we've learned from these experiences of having to do public programs, online public programs rather, and taking that into the future, and it will become more of what we do in general.
Yeah, I think one thing, so last night we both were attended or tuned in or whatever you say now to Eileen Miles doing their tour of art in their home with the Rubin Foundation, setting it all up. And it was great. And Eileen said something, about how the audiences have shifted, and like, it's not just about numbers and reach, but like the nature changes. And I noticed that watching some of the Instagram live things that you've done and Rainer's done and Flavin's done, watching the comments that people and just the kind of like feedback that as an art historian, you just don't think of doing. And so watching like the nature of audiences change has been interesting. Have you been feeling that or observing that?
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. I mean, in Marfa, we're a small community. We generally have the same 75 to 100 people participating in our programs, and that's even the case in Soho. And I think that this has been a great experience it's been great to widen our audience, and also, excuse me, it's provided us with the opportunity to engage a diversity of different people to converse with. In some ways, it's there's challenges to doing online programming, but there's also, people who are just in their home all throughout the world. They're like, oh yeah, I can do this conversation. And so instead of needing to fly people to New York or to Marfa, we can talk to people that otherwise it would have been, cost prohibitive and travel, very difficult in terms of travel. And that's been really great. And I look forward to, as we continue with online programming, being able to partner with other organizations and partner with voices and people from other institutions that we haven't been able to do because of distance. And I think that's a great opportunity for us, and have where we wanted to move to anyway, in terms of widening the idea of who Donald Judd is and what his concerns are. I mean, as Judd was an artist who cared deeply about ecology, cared deeply about local democracy. And I think being able to bring in voices on those issues from other places around the world, as well as still being, very focused on what's happening in our communities, will be really productive for us.
Yeah, that's great. I know another thing you do is field researcher inquiries, and you're the point of access for the massive archive of personal papers Judd left behind, and that the foundation's accrued in the past years. Have those, we're seeing things change here in our reading room, so I'm sure things are changing for you in terms of research and how you provide it or don't, or
yeah. No, definitely. I mean, right now the majority of our staff is working from home, and I am working from home most of the time. So we are not facilitating on-site research requests right now, but because we've always been a remote repository 3 hours from an airport, we have really tried to make sure our remote access is something that we can provide really efficiently and readily, and that we're very open to. Obviously we know that there's no surrogate for the direct experience to Judd's work or to the materials. But I think as this, whether it's just because we're remote or because of the issues related to the pandemic, we will continue to invest time and resources into being able to provide remote research opportunities. And, I think that we still have been fielding requests, not as many as normal, but I think, the public programming has been really helpful with that, of kind of providing access to resources. We've been putting more of Judd's writings online. We've had a number of publications that we've worked on in the past 5 years that were really focused on trying to provide material from the archive to a general audience, both scholarly and just people interested in Judd. And now with those projects complete, I'm hoping we can really turn our attention back to completing the process of the Donald Judd papers. That's really key for us. There's still, I think, a lot of material that we've yet to really organize and make accessible. So that's kind of where our focus is heading now, is to really complete that necessary work so that even more of the papers will be accessible for researchers, and then seeing how we can engage robust digitization projects to provide online access as well.
Yeah, this time has weirdly been great for all those back burner cleaning up records projects. Like those, we are getting those done. They've been waiting is kind of a good thing.
Yeah.
So I want to pivot a little bit and talk about Marfa, a little bit beyond Judd, because that's
Sure.
huge. And I was thinking with Kay Turner, who they did the previous oral history with, we were talking about our heart homes, and she's in Austin, which is home with her partner, but her heart home is in Brooklyn, where she's lived for years. And I remember, I was compelled back in early April, March. My heart home became apparent because all of a sudden I really needed to re-up my Marfa Public Radio membership and buy the solidarity bonds. Like that's where I was focusing, that kind of thing.
Right.
But you're such an important figure in Marfa, and you, along with Tim Johnson, run Marfa Book Company, which is such an important nexus. And Marfa is this place that connects so many people, and not just in the American art world, but the global art world. And I'm wondering if you're hearing from people, who consider Marfa a special place, like so many of us do. Are they checking on you? Are they like, I want to come escape to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a complicated question. We have our economy is now, has a large tourism focus, which has its pros and also has its cons, I think, especially as we've seen during the pandemic. I think what's, interesting from the Judd and Judd Foundation perspective is that, our records reflect a time before there was tourism here.
Yeah.
When it was just Donald Judd, making the Chinati Foundation, and we're talking about hundreds of visitors, not, tens of thousands. And I think we've been really looking back to that time, which it really isn't even that long ago. We're talking about maybe 10, 15 years ago, and what the economy looked like then. And in keeping with Judd's spirit, thinking about sustainable economic methods for our town, ways that people can have jobs and have work that allows them to be safe, that is not only service focused, where people can make things here and make things that then go out into the world instead of primarily just bringing people to this place. It is special, but as you know, we have an elderly population that really needs to be taken care of and protected. We don't have a hospital here, and we have exceedingly high levels of the population are uninsured. And so we have a lot of real challenges that don't always get expressed in the news about Marfa, as you know. And I think I've been particularly impressed with how Judd Foundation, in particular, Rainer and Flavin Judd, Judd's daughter and son, have been thinking about our relationship to the community during this pandemic, and knowing that we are one small part of a larger ecosystem, and that we really need to take our role in bringing people to the town very seriously, and really letting people know that right now it's not a safe time to be traveling to Marfa. And that our ability to provide, I think, some public programming and connection to this place without having people physically be here has been one contribution. And frankly, just staying closed, I think, has been a contribution that we can bring. Sometimes not doing something is as powerful as doing something, I think, especially when, we know that staying closed is really crucial to fighting the uptick in this pandemic.
Yeah.
Being connected. I will say Marfa's also a strange place in terms of world events, because you know, you have these connections with all these great friends, and artists throughout the world, but you kind of, you're in a rural place and there aren't the same sort of activities when it comes to um, direct action, and participation in civic activities. It's on a much kind of smaller, more like one-to-one community scale, and there's something very beautiful about that. But there's something that can also make you feel, you do feel remote from these really important actions in terms of, the Black Lives Matter movement in particular. And so I think for all of us, we have to think about what we can be doing from this space, because we don't have the opportunities to be going to pass as a lot of our friends do. And so I think it, that's always been a little bit of a struggle, at least for me living here, is kind of knowing what's going on, but feeling distance from it and having to find a way to participate that still feels meaningful.
Yeah, I hadn't thought it'd take a lot of effort to get to a march.
Right. Yeah.
March.
And there was a Black Lives Matter march in Alpine, which is really wonderful. And I know that there was a lot of participation in Presidio as well. So it is happening. And that's something to be exceedingly grateful for. But then also thinking about, the specifics of our community here in Marfa, and how the intersections of Black Lives Matter with other questions about economics and the lives of our friends and neighbors who are people of color in this community.
Mm. So these go so quickly. This is crazy. I'm used to like 2 days of conversation. So for the last few minutes, what do you think's been missing from accounts of both pandemics, of both crises around race and COVID?
Oh gosh, what's been missing from both accounts? This has, I think it's been really interesting. I will say in Marfa, there is a level of anger that's come out in our kind of social media communities. We have a kind of online Marfa group, and I have noticed a lot more anger, and this anger is being, directed at questions of gentrification, questions of local versus non-local, of tourist, and so on. And these are questions that have been omnipresent in our community. The level of anger, I think, has risen, and I think it's been interesting to see the kind of call for people to stop being angry. And I think that anger in this instance is really important to be able to express, and that it is a step towards moving to direct action. And so it's been kind of, I think for me, what's been missing a little bit in our community, and what I hope can be fostered, is the ability for people to voice their anger and their frustration. And even if it isn't coming out exactly in, a way that is productive or useful, I think people feeling like they have a voice is really key in both to the questions of Black Lives Matter and the questions of the pandemic, and to being able to share their experience and be heard. And I think it's important for everyone to be able to sit in discomfort in this and let people speak and be angry, if that's the emotion that's coming out.
I think that's perfect.
Okay.
Important thing to end on. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you, Josh. It's been a pleasure.